Thank you for joining another virtual bird talk. As you can see, Chirp Nature Center has been hosting bird talks for over a year now, and due to the current circumstances, we are now doing them virtually. So whether you're seeing this through Facebook, YouTube, or you've joined the webinar, or you're at the watch party that's happening at Chirp Nature Center, we thank you so much for being here today. So just to let you know, our next bird talk is going to be Saturday, August 15th, 2020. And before we begin, we have a few birdhouse rules. So for the next 45 minutes, please enjoy yourself. But remember, we have a quiz at the very end of the event, which if you participate in, you'll be receiving a free little prize, and you'll be entered to win for a bird-themed grand prize that I'll talk about a little later. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into our presentation about children, nature, and birding. So today we're speaking about the importance of these three things: children, nature, and birding. And one of the main reasons this information is so crucial is because children of today's generation are faced with a huge challenge. Now, as technology advances, we're more electronically connected, but we're emotionally disconnected. And this is becoming true of younger generations, specifically our children and grandchildren. In an article by EdSource, the amount of time that young children are spending on their screens has increased by 300% in the last 4 years. And for teens, they specifically are spending over 7 hours on social media, and tweens are spending around 5 hours on social media, and this is not including homework. Now, with technology introduced to children at younger ages, the overuse can have detrimental effects on their mental and physical health. And we understand the irony of using a virtual Zoom webinar to promote the use of a technology less option. However, we're not discrediting the value of technology. We're just focusing on the overuse of it in children's and our grandchildren's lives. So let's look at some of the data. In a study done by JAMA Pediatrics, they tested the effects of varying screen time on the development of kids ages 2, 3, and 5 years old. And they found that there was a correlation. The research found that kids who spent more time watching screens at ages 2 did worse on developmental tests when tested at ages 3 and 5. Technology also has an effect on our mental health. In a study published in the Preventative Medicine Reports, they questioned what the relationship was between screen time and mental health issues like depression and anxiety. They found that young people who spend over 7 hours or more a day on the screens, they're twice as likely to be diagnosed with depression or anxiety. They're more easily distracted. They have problems finishing tasks and making friends when compared to those who use social media for less than an hour a day. Now, I fall victim to this one, but in a study about screen time versus sleep quality, the study was titled Digital Media and Sleep in Childhood Adolescence. 90% of the studies found an association between screen time and sleep health. Now, when people spent more time scrolling through Instagram, this created later bedtimes and a lack of sleep. Also, there's the screen light in our phones and our computers. What it does is it inhibits the ability of the body to release melatonin, which is a hormone that helps the body sleep. Now, in a novel, Last Child in the Woods, Richard Louv, who is a children's advocate expert, he brought up another problem with today's younger generation. He provides research about the necessity of nature for the physical and emotional health of adults. And for those who don't receive this, he coined a term called nature deficit disorder, which is an issue that can happen, and it's the problematic divide when children don't have access to nature. But instead of me trying to explain it in depth for you, why don't we have Richard Louv share his own insight?
Nature experiences are in some ways just as important as anything else in a child's development, and they have a human right to that experience in nature. So nature deficit disorder is a phrase that has caught on, and I didn't really expect that to happen, but it has. That's not a known medical diagnosis. Maybe it should be, but it's not. And I always point that out. What it is a language to use, a way to describe this feeling we've had for a long time about that disconnect from nature that those parents, even some kids, told me about beginning in the late 80s and early 90s. Some of the most recent research has certainly linked lack of nature in people's lives to such problems as vitamin D deficiency. Recess has been cut, physical education has been cut in US schools. What are we thinking? Let alone get the kids outdoors in a natural setting or taking them on a field trip to, a state park. We're having those kids sit all day, and sitting is the new smoking, and guess what we're doing to them?
Now, as we continue this conversation on children, nature, and birding, we wanted to include some experienced educators in our talk. I'm so excited to introduce you to Dawn Cook. She is a credentialed teacher and has incorporated federal curriculum into a nature-based experimental classroom called High Trails Outdoor Science School, which started in 2000 and for 20 years has been bringing students of Southern California into nature to learn. Now, as an adult, she has found ways to incorporate recreation with nature into her everyday life. As you can see on this right-hand side, she's currently mountain biking through the snow, which is pretty impressive. She also coaches local high school teams, and she leads rides for women's on in the mountain biking club. So if you want to bike through some snow, make sure you reach out to Dawn Cook. Our other panelist for today is Scott Wayner. He has been working with students for 40 years and had been an educator for over 30 in the classroom. He finds joy in helping students make connections between ideas as he teaches kids in a variety of classrooms. His parents got him interested in nature through camping and taking hikes, and as a father and grandfather, he continues to think of creative ways to get his own family appreciating nature, like roasting donuts over a campfire. So, I would like to open up this conversation with our panelists. The first question's for Dawn. Over the past years, what have you noticed about the relationship that kids have with technology?
Thanks, Tori. Well, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. So we started our outdoor school in 2000. And to be quite honest, they didn't have access to technology the way the students do today. No one really came up to High Trails with a smartphone. Parents weren't putting them in their suitcases. And today, the smartphone is really just kind of this ubiquitous thing that all of these students have, and they have constant access to media and data all the time. So I would say the biggest difference is almost like a fear of disconnecting. Like I don't know how to be without my media, without my cell phone. It's just a really big change, and it's been a really big change for us as teachers in trying to figure out, like, how do we deliver this information in a way that we can, I guess, be more engaging than what they can find on the internet.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And it's a great segue to our question for Scott. So Scott, how has technology affected learning in the classroom, and what is a benefit and what is a downside?
Well, like you said, there are some good uses of technology and there's some great technology out there. But something I've noticed that's a concern for me is that because we can Google a question, we can get a bunch of information real fast. And so sometimes students and people confuse the idea that a list of facts is different than really understanding or appreciating something. Like I can Google hummingbirds and list 5 facts about hummingbirds, but that's different than really knowing what's unique about them and appreciating what I see when they're flying around the backyard or something. So I get concerned when we think that a list of quick answers is the same as really knowing and appreciating. And so, we have to make sure students understand the difference between the two.
Oh, I think that's a valuable insight. And again, thank you so much for being here today. For our audience, just be aware that we will be having a Q&A session with our panelists at the end. So if you do have questions, you can post them in the chat, whether it be through YouTube, Facebook, or in this webinar. But for now, I think both of you as panelists brought up a really good point of how do we make this transition? How do we engage students when technology has become such a huge part of our lives? So Fortunately, our next section, we have a few answers for that. So I'd like to go ahead and transition to that. So especially now, with so much of our lives converted to virtual technology and communication, incorporating the nature into children's lives is crucial for their overall health. So this quote highlights the scientifically proven benefits of the outdoors, and so much so that doctors are now prescribing time outside. Now, as you can see, in an article published by UC Berkeley, they said there's 6 ways to help children learn. And so I want to share those with you today. The first one, 20 minutes in a park setting, elevated attention performances and manages ADHD symptoms. Oh, there we go. Is that a better screen for you guys? All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So the first one, nature restores children and restores children's attention. Number 2, just like adults, children are less stressed when they have green spaces to retreat to. It helps them be more resilient, and they improve their cortisol pattern in students. Outdoor activities help kids develop more self-discipline, concentrate better, and improve their impulse control. With class outside, kids are more engaged in learning, not only outside, but when they return to the classroom. Access to nature encourages children to be more physically active and keep in shape for longer, even as they continue to age. And nature is a calm, socially safe, and fun learning environment where kids can pretend, play, explore, create, and problem solve, and enhance relationships. But again, don't just take UC Berkeley for it. Let's hear from pediatrician Dr. Nushin Razi speaks about the value of prescribing nature for health.
Well, let's say, for example, you go into a forest. Within minutes, your heart rate will come down, you will breathe slower, you sweat less, and cortisol, the stress hormone, starts decreasing. You may be lucky enough to have the feeling called awe. Psychologists break awe down to mean a combination of fear and happiness and pleasure all at once. And after people feel awe, their focus moves from internal to external. And so anxiety and depression go down, and people feel more empathy just from having a split-second experience of awe. After about an hour outside, you may find that half of that hour was physically active. And when you're out in nature, your mind is restored.
As you can see, these are some very important points. As she noticed, your heart rate decreases, your stress is reduced, there's a feeling of awe, you increase empathy, and your mind is restored. So let's also look at the correlation between nature and overall physical health. When playing outside, you absorb vitamin D, which is an essential vitamin that helps strengthen bones, teeth, and muscles. Being exposed to pollen, fresh air, and natural bacteria helps build children's immune systems. And nature may not affect physical activity directly, but the more time in nature, the kids develop a better cardiorespiratory system, and nature provides the space to run around, be active, and exercise in an open environment. Now let's hear from our panelists. Dawn, for students with little experience in nature, how did exposure to nature in your camp affect them?
It's interesting. I like something that Scott said earlier about looking at Google and getting 5 facts, but not really experiencing the hummingbird in their backyard. And I think at High Trails, what I see from students is it's exciting for them. You know, just initially them getting off the bus and the wonder in their eyes and just the excitement that they bring is a pretty amazing thing. But they also have this opportunity to really get down and theorize and hypothesize and experience and like create conclusions. And it's not something that they're just reading and regurgitating to you. It's an experience, and it's an experience that like many of them are missing. Unfortunately, we don't get to see our students after their week at High Trails. So they come to us and we have these connections with them, and it's really a wonderful thing. And then they go home, and I like to think that we're impactful and that they're seeking these experiences on their own.
Yeah, I think that's very valuable. Have you heard any responses from like teachers or people who've attended and how it may have affected their students afterwards?
We do. We have teachers that come back year after year, and they wouldn't be coming back if they didn't see the benefit in their students. And our students will often make connections with their instructors and write letters back to their instructors, which is like this golden thing for them, you know, to be able to hear from them and what they're taking away, not just about nature, but about life and relationships. And that's a big part of it too. It's not just science. It's all encompassing.
I totally agree. And for Scott, when did you realize the impact of the outdoors on the development of your students?
Well, I think, and I do want to tag on what Dawn said, creating that excitement is critical. But, you know, growing up in Big Bear, I just assumed everyone is having some of the similar experiences that I was having, being told by my mom to get outside sometimes just to get us out of the house. But, you know, you're outside in the dirt with the frogs and the snakes, and you're down by the lake, you're riding your bikes on dirt trails. And so when I went down to the city and I was working with some students in kind of a suburb area, I was really caught off guard that not all students are having that same experience. And so for them to, I became very conscious of making an effort to talk about whether some of my experiences or if we read something in a book to kind of share how that might be, everything from different birds that we're seeing to being safe here, walking on the ice because they're not used to that idea. So there's a very intentional effort to do that because it was strange to think my students, their idea of nature is on a cement path in a planned park with a picturesque pond and the perfect birds, ducks waddling up to take bread. That was not my experience. So I became much more intentional as time went on. But what happens in a classroom as you start doing this, you talk about birds, for example, your students get excited and they start to share that excitement. So you might talk about something you're seeing, but then pretty soon a student comes in, Mr. Weiner, I saw this little bird taking this big hawk, just like we talked about in the classroom, and they're getting all wound up and excited and they're talking to each other. Now they're starting to learn from each other. And they want to research and they want to ask more questions. And that's pretty exciting too. And there's one more thing that I noticed too. You can use nature to share art. For example, you can talk about Emily Dickinson, some poetry she's done. You can talk about the subtle shading that maybe George O'Keeffe has done in her desert scenes. You can start to bring art in, whether it be music or all these different things that can come in as you get students not just looking and listening facts, but actually getting them dirty and involved in what's happening outside. And the same is true with the birds they see the differences, that it's going to go from academic to looking at the changes, comparisons, changes over time. It's pretty exciting to get students excited about what they're seeing around them.
No, I think those are both very valuable points and really good insight, which transitions us into our next section. So thank you so much for sharing all of that information, because I think there is a lot of value in just getting children outdoors. You'd mentioned this idea of really getting them excited, enthusiastic about what's happening. So our next section, how do we do this? Making sure my screen looks good. Are we on the right screen? Okay, we're going to keep going. So the biggest question, how do you enjoy nature together collaboratively? Well, getting children in nature is easy. And here's a few ways you can do it. Number one, lead by example. There are a variety of ways to get your kids engaged. And as they go through the developmental stage, they're going to mimic what their parents do. So go outside together, create a lifestyle that includes outdoor activity. You can also look at after-school programs and enroll your students or kids or grandchildren in them. Only a few are mentioned here. Visit nature centers. You can go to any of these areas and just look at the animals, get a closer look, realize that there's different types of vegetation and trees in whatever area you may be in. You can also check out, as well as checking out local nature centers, you can also plan trips to natural areas. Again, starting in your backyard, and from there moving to parks and other open spaces that provide an opportunity for your kids to get engaged. And at Chirp, we've found that birding provides an excellent opportunity to get children interested and active in nature. So you may be asking, well, what are some of these benefits? The first one is that birding is an intergenerational pastime. The outdoor knows no limits. So birding is an activity that can be enjoyed by grandparents all the way down to younger generations. And by doing it as a family, you create more of a bond. Birding inspires discovery. You can search for newness and for the unknown. As Scott had mentioned, this idea of just getting out there and learning something new and really engaging with this. And as children continue to bird, they develop important skills like observational skills and appreciation for nature and mindfulness. Encourage curiosity. Ask your children and grandchildren why, what, how. Don't give them the answers, but provide them the space to think by asking them, well, what do you think? Birding is also cheap and easy. You can bird in your backyard, or you can take a walk through the park. Birds are essentially everywhere. And one of the most important, birding fosters creativity and community. You can create a fun birding atmosphere in your own home. You can build a feeder with an egg carton, which, by the way, the full video is on the Chirp for Bird YouTube channel, so you can check that out as well. So you may be wondering, all right, I know that it's beneficial. How do I get kids involved? Well, I'm going to give you 5 easy steps, starting with getting outside. Change your kids' idea of what it means to be outdoors. Go on adventures instead of walks. Look up local hiking trails. Introduce the concept of birds, because birds are hard to spot, but they are easy to hear. And as soon as your students start to make that association, then they might start to get more excited. You can start encouraging an interaction with birds. You can buy a bird feeder and you can build a bird feeder. Again, the more time the kids invest and really get engaged and appreciative of birds, the more time that'll pay off in the end. You can feed the ducks. You can go on a walk and look for birds. Again, there's YouTube channels and so many tutorials on how to build bird feeders, but if that sounds a little overwhelming, you can always buy one. Next step would be to increase the identification skills. So you can begin to identify birds from your feeder by listening to their song, noticing their size, their flight patterns, and be sure to help you can get the right tools like binoculars and field guides. You can even use free websites like allaboutbirds.com and National Audubon Society. These are both great resources with free apps that help you get engaged with birds. And I know that I just encouraged you to use technology as a resource. But again, remember, the goal is to get kids interacting with nature. And if technology is a bridge to get them into nature, I would see it as pretty beneficial. The next step would be to record your sightings. Go ahead and track the birds. You can track them online at Citizen Science, Feeder Watch, Cornell, and you can get a birding journal where kids can sketch what they see and record it. They can record songs, they can take videos. Again, just constantly getting them engaged and excited about the discoveries they're making as they see these birds. And finally, always continue to explore. Go on organized bird walks with experienced birders. You can go Chirp Nature Center. We have our in-person bird walks the first Saturday of every month. You can begin to travel to various locations and document the birds. You can take photos and videos. Again, the biggest thing, just get them outside, get them enjoying nature and appreciating all that is around them. And at Chirp Nature Center, our goal is to connect people to nature using birds as inspiration. So we have some tools to help you. We have over 50 different feeders. We have a variety of binoculars, many local guidebooks, as well as national guidebooks and checklists for you to check out. We have bird game themes and toys and books, all for your children to get engaged. And Don't forget, we have our virtual events. Every month, we have 4 different events that will help you get more engaged and educate you more about birding. So, Scott and Dawn, I'd be interested to hear how birding benefits your students. Dawn, can you give us an example of how you use birding to help children engage with nature?
Well, we have a variety of classes at High Trails, and one of my favorite ones is called Feathered Friends. I actually really like it when it's earlier in the week for our students. The way that we open this class up is we sit all of our students in a circle and we ask them to turn off their voice, which is generally what we're all using all of the time. So we're asking them to experience the forest through their ears and through their eyesight and just listen. And just like you were saying earlier, Tori, you can't always see the birds, but if you're quiet in the forest, you can definitely hear them. And I think one of the greatest things is when they start to identify bird calls and bird songs. And then throughout the week at High Trails, they're so excited as they're going out into the forest of like, oh my goodness, I think that's a chickadee. Is that a chickadee? You know, and it's just, it's this wonder that they have that you're not getting, you know, from just watching something. And within that class, we teach adaptations and different beaks and how it works with different food, and they get to experience that as well, and learning how we negatively affect birds, but how we can also positively affect birds. So it's just a great way to experience the forest.
That's awesome. That's so exciting that you have that opportunity for kids, again, to start at such a young age and just really engage in nature. I'll have to be honest, the more bird watching I've done, I too get very enthusiastic. I do hear mountain chickadees, and I tell my parents all the time, and I tell my friends, whoever I'm with, because I think there is an excitement, again, in that sense of self-discovery and just really becoming more aware of your surroundings. So, Scott, question for you would be, what skills learned through birding directly translate to skills needed to learn in the classroom or life in general?
Well, there's some things that are advantages of looking at birds, comparing birds. They're easy to find, a lot easier than, say, a walrus. Whether you're at the beach or the lake, different times of day, you're going to find birds around. That allows a lot of the real analytical skills, comparing, analyzing, and all that type of thinking that Dawn is talking about. And I know our students who've gone to High Trails, that's a great experience for them because they really do challenge their brain. And birds is one tool you can use to really open up those types of questions, that type of thinking that is so exciting to watch. You can start with very simple things, up to very complex, different types of questions about birds too. It's everything, look at that, what's that bird doing over here, down to more complex things. The listening skills, the differentiation, all those are pretty fun. One thing that I have enjoyed over time is that you're really training students the difference between looking and observing. And observing takes that different mentality, that patience that Dawn was talking about earlier, to shut the noise out, to be quiet. And one of Randy's talks recently, and there's a lot of adults getting as excited as the kids do at High Trails. But one of Randy's talks, he talked about a sit spot, where you literally just stop and you sit and you listen, and you can create that in your backyard to a certain extent. You can go by the lake or by a meadow and do the same thing. So I think this idea of intentionally stopping, listening, looking, comparing, we sometimes associate that to academics, but really it's as you mentioned in your other slides, it's really good for us too, to be able to do different types of things like that, to really appreciate what's happening around us. And it's simple. It's going down by the lake in the morning is totally different. What you see, what you hear is very different than what you see at noon. And that's different than what you see in the evening when the bugs are out and you're watching these birds fly around and thinking, is that a bird or a bat? Or how can I tell the difference? Or all these things are going on, but birds they're common. You can see them. You can compare a pelican at the ocean to a hummingbird someplace. And birds are a great way to get students thinking and involved and excited. Like Dawn said, and adults too, just getting very excited about what they see and what they're trying to figure out.
Oh, thank you guys so much again for that insight. And ideally tying birding to everyday life and the skills that we can learn. So now I'm so excited to open this up to an open Q&A session. So for all of those people joining us on the webinar, on YouTube, on Facebook, we have a Chirp team that is going to be taking your questions, fielding them to me, and then I'll be asking the panelists. So go ahead and post your questions and we will get some questions answered for you guys. But for now, I see people are already active in the chat. Lorraine said, Dawn, you should connect with a college or university social science department so that a student could do an academic follow-up study of the impact of your programs. I bet that would help with grant writing too. That's a very good point. Is that something you've thought of before, Dawn?
We haven't worked with university students. I like that. That's something we could definitely look into. I mean, they're always looking for more to do.
Oh, I think that's very valuable. All right, so we're waiting for those questions to come in.
Yeah, Tori, if I can add on to what Donna said.
Yeah, please do.
One of the things I've really enjoyed about High Trails is that the counselors all have BAs. The way they work with students is impressive. But as parents, one of the things we could learn from what those counselors are doing is a type of open-ended questions that they ask, the comparisons. And like I said, even going to the same place and looking at the change in seasons. It's just fascinating the different ways we can get students excited about what they're seeing and sometimes what they take for granted. You mentioned, going out and listening and then starting to look for a bird. Sometimes we wait to see a bird. Oh my goodness, look at that. But sometimes stop and listen and appreciate. And we can get students very excited about what they're seeing and what they're hearing around them too.
No, I think that's very valuable. And as we wait for questions to come in, I have a question for each of you guys. Is there an experience in your life, specifically with the students that you work with, where you notice that change automatically or directly? And if you could you share that experience with us?
I think one of the most powerful things for me is I was a school teacher prior to coming to High Trails, and I think that there are a lot of students that do not thrive in the classroom. It's a real struggle for them to be contained in those four walls, to have the very rigid rules, and coming to High Trails, it's just a different experience. It's a different mentality, and it is a new classroom. And some of those students that struggle in regular traditional school, really, they excel. That's the word I'm looking for. They excel in this type of environment. And through some of your slides, it was just a reminder to me just how important it is to have children and adults experience all different types of learning and places, and just really find what works for them.
No, that's a great answer. And Scott, I have a question for you. You mentioned this, one of the recent bird walks that you went on with Chirp Nature Center. And so I was wondering, what's your favorite bird?
I actually track seasons with mountain chickadee. I know it's spring. It's now, I talk about the observing thing. We tend to take birds for granted. And as we work with our kids, we want them to be a little more intentional. But there are different ways I can tell a change in a storm and also a change in seasons. And it's that the mountain chickadee in the spring, you start to hear those, and a couple of the birds I listen for in the spring. And so you wake up early in the morning and you hear the pre-dawn chorus going on of the birds. And there are certain birds, I hear them come back like, hey, it's time. Same thing with hummingbirds. They're back in and they're hitting the bird feeder. It's interesting that the bird feeder that we have in our backyard is the exact same bird feeder my mom has in the backyard. So here as a kid, I saw this bird feeder. Now we have the same model. It's funny, I happen to see they have the same model at Chirp too. So we have the same bird feeder, which means that my parents' grandkids have seen hummingbirds at a bird feeder just like that. And when our grandkids come up, it means my mom's great grandkids are watching a hummingbird come to the same model bird feeder that I watched a few years ago. It's exciting to see these changes in the seasons, the changes, the sharing through generations. And honestly, depending on where you are, when we have those summer rains, if you watch the change of the birds, a lot of birds come out right after the summer rain is done. And you learn that by sitting still and watching these changes. And so when I see these summer rains come through, they start and stop and start and stop. As soon as I see a bunch of birds come out, I figure, yep, probably done for the day. We're done.
That's great. Well, what a wonderful way to be able to track the seasons. We did just get a question from Lorraine. She's asking, are there certain activities to initially get kids interested in nature that are different based upon their age group? Whoever, go for it. I'd love to hear from both of you guys.
I'll tell you, as a parent and as a teacher and as a grandparent, a lot of that's, as you've mentioned, exactly on their age. And so the simple differences that you see are better for younger ages, or if they're just learning about birds. Simple questions. So what's that bird doing over there? Oh, do you hear that? Where can you find the bird up in the tree? As they start to get a little bit older, oh, there's the hummingbird over here. Oh, look, there's this type of a bird. And then the types of food you set out, and this goes, I mean, my mom, she had her hummingbird feeder, and she'd set different types of, whether it be seed or peanuts or things on the rail of our back deck. And that brought in different types of birds, which opened up a whole new set of questions. And so these very simple types of questions that you can ask kids is what's going to lead to the types of thinking that leads to them asking more questions. Really, in a way, teaching them how to ask questions about birds as you're asking questions, but also setting out a variety of, whether it be feeders or a variety of types of food, is going to bring the different types of birds, at least to different types of thinking and the comparison. And then you get into stuff like, why does this bird have this type of a beak? Why does this one have this type of a bill? What's the difference between a beak and a bill? And you have these conversations that get started, and pretty soon you realize they're leading a lot of the learning. They're leading a lot of the researching that you're doing too. It's pretty exciting to let the kids kind of start asking unique questions that we may not think of. But a lot of it's based on age and their complexity of their thinking too.
Oh, thank you. I think that's a great answer for that. Dawn, is there anything you wanted to add?
Actually, really like, Scott, where you went with the questioning and generating the excitement for them, because once they get excited, then they take it on and make it their own. So as adults, we can initially ask them those questions, but they're going to take it and run with it and have fun with it and learn. And it's just a beautiful thing as a parent to watch that happen.
That's true.
One more thing, Tori, I mentioned how excited I was when I saw the same exact bird feeder that, TikTok, that grandma's had forever. But also, there was a particular poster that was really hard to find, birds we have in the mountain region, Southern California, and that poster is at Chirp. And I got all excited to see that in there. And then on the nature walk, Randy mentioned the Peterson guide. Those are huge. That real simple checklist. When I saw that in the store, that's something I want to take to school and start. Well, school's a little bit different than normal right now, but to encourage students to get outside and intentionally look and listen and observe. The virtual bird walks you guys have done, that's a teacher resource. And you guys did it to, for one reason, I saw and thought, oh, my students can see that. How cool is that? And then we can share that experience together. So I appreciate those virtual bird walks you guys have posted too. There's massive information in there. It's wonderful.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And that helps answer a question that someone from Facebook posted. They asked, do you have any literature and handouts on getting kids outdoors to share with parents? And as Scott mentioned, Chirp has a variety of resources that you can use. We have our wild bird checklist, which you can pick up at our store locally, or you can look for it online at chirpforbirds.com. We also have a variety of age-appropriate books, fun ones that just get kids engaged with nature. And I have to admit, some of them are pretty funny. There also is the book that we mentioned, Richard Louve's book, many about getting kids back into nature or kind of engaging that in their lives. All of these can be found at Chirp Nature Center. We also have a variety online at chirpforbirds.com. So wherever you're coming from, know that there's a lot of good resources out there. Well, again, I want to say thank you so much, Dawn and Scott, for joining us here today. I think your insight was invaluable in the importance of children, nature, and birding. And so thank you so much for joining us, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But again, we really, really appreciate here at Chirp just having you as a resource. And again, promoting something that we too find very valuable for all generations. So thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch to our final screen because now, audience, we want to thank you so much for joining and talk about what you get to do. All right, so I'm going to make sure again on the right screen. So now it is your turn. We're going to ask you to take the bird quiz. So now that you've learned all this information about children, nature, and birding, we've set up a very special quiz for you at chirpforbirds.com. Now, the nice thing about this, as mentioned prior, is by participating in this quiz, you will be entered into a free children birdhouse kit. And as mentioned before, building birdhouses is for all ages, but this is a very easy, educative type of activity that you can use to get your kids engaged in nature and with birding. And for all of those that participate, you will be receiving a pandemic bird sticker. So in the quiz, you'll be able to enter your mailing address and we will mail this super cute sticker right to you. But don't wait. You only have 24 hours to complete this quiz. So right after we're done with the presentation, go to chirpforbirds.com/quiz, take that quiz. It takes like 2 minutes and test your bird brain. So until we see you again, I just want to let you be aware of a few of the upcoming virtual events that we have. This Wednesday, the 4th Wednesday of every month, we are starting a new how-to series. And the reason that we've started this, it's a how-to on backyard birding. We've had so many questions from our customers about how to get more birds or specific birds into your backyard, how to even set up your backyard so the birds will come to it. So we've created a series of videos just for you, so you are able to get engaged. These events are live, so we'll be having our first one on bird-friendly backyards on the 22nd. So we hope to see you there. We also have our virtual bird walks. Now they're at 4 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, and they follow our in-person bird walks that happen on the first Saturday of every month. So as Scott mentioned, we have a variety of ways that you can get engaged with nature, whether it's in person or whether it's virtually with these bird walks. And as you're aware, since you're participating in one, we also have our virtual bird talks at 4 p.m. the third Saturday of every month. This upcoming one is about fantastic flying squirrels. So I suggest don't miss out on that. And I know this is an overwhelming amount of information, but you can find all of this information, all of the links, and any of the fun resources that we talked about on chirpforbirds.com. And until we see you again, let us know how we can help you. We're located in Big Bear Lake, California, but you can call us at any time. We're open from 10 to 6, and you can email us at help@chirpforbirds.com. You can also connect with us on our social media threads. We have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So again, thank you so much for joining us here today. We really appreciate your questions, your thoughtfulness, and your ability to share in this important information with us. Now, go ahead and test your bird brain at chirpforbirds.com/quiz. Have a great evening, and we'll see you at our next virtual event.